All right, guys, welcome. So, my name is Solomon Davis. I'm known online as Bilbo Shaggins. I'm a porn performer, professional dom, and a sex psychology educator. I've been in this industry for the last, better part of the last decade. Basically got into porn whilst I was at university studying psychology. Decided that actually there is a real gap in the market where people can use kink as a kind of form of therapy to better understand things that may have happened to them and use it as a way of turning something perhaps traumatic into something that can be therapeutic. And so I decided to combine, obviously, the studies I was doing in psychology with the work I was doing in the porn industry. Now, communication is a massive part of any dynamic. It doesn't matter whether it's platonic, sexual, romantic, communication is always a key part. And I know it can be difficult, it doesn't matter whether you're discussing what you want for dinner or whether you're discussing the intricacies of your sexual fantasies. It's never an easy conversation to have. So obviously today we're going to be going through a few stuff. I am going to apologise. I'm going to be looking at notes because it's been about 6 months since I've done this workshop and my memory is not that good. But anyway, so starting off, we're going to introduce some basic terminology. I'm sure it's going to be like sucking eggs for a lot of you guys, but just in case there's a few of you here that might be new to the scene, who might not quite know what we're talking about, we're going to go through some really basic stuff. Safe words, boundaries, hard and soft limits, and aftercare. Super simple stuff. Everyone here know what that is? Anyone here not know what that is? Any hands up? I think we're all good. Anyway, we'll do a brief overview anyway. So hard and soft limits. A soft limit might be something that you're not super into, but under the right circumstances, you're like, okay, I might enjoy that. So super easy. Hard limit, off the cards. Not interested, done, no thank you. Super simple stuff. Safe words, safe taps, safe signals. If at any point during play something is uncomfortable, something as simple as a yellow might mean slow down, red might mean cease, stop play, and aftercare is initiated. Same with signals. If you can't say anything, maybe you've got a gag in, little scissor sign to say cut, or a little tap, whatever it might be, is different from person to person. And finally, aftercare, the ability to bring somebody back to baseline at the end of play. Great for the sub, also great for the dom, because you're going to get sub job and dom job, like I talked about. Anyway, the best thing about these kind of conversations is you have to create an atmosphere where you feel non-judgmental. It's never easy to have these kind of discussions because there's going to be stuff said that might be uncomfortable. Your partner might be in something that you're really, really not into. Or they might be really not into something that you love. And so it's not easy to have these conversations, but you have to go into it with the ability to feel like it's not personal. Listen, understand what they're saying, ask questions, but don't presume. And really take on what they're saying and realize that it's not just taken at face value. Sorry. A lot of the time, we are into the things that we're into due to experiences that we've had. There might be triggers, there might be traumas, stuff that is deep, deep below the surface. So when your partner or your playmate, whoever it is explaining the stuff they're into, try not to be put off by it or offended or anything like that. Just try to accept it, try to understand it, and then ask questions. So, obviously, when it comes down to stuff like safe words and aftercare, there's probably a couple of people in the audience here, maybe not in this crowd to be fair, I'm used to doing this in places with a lot more vanilla people, whereas people in the audience nodding going, why do I need a safe word? My favourite position is missionary with the lights off. And it's like, okay, well, sex is intricate, sex is nuanced. You never know what could happen. And again, people have triggers, they have traumas. There might be stuff that is said or done that is just too much. And that can be in the most vanilla sex. It doesn't matter what the play is. It doesn't matter if you're doing the most hardcore bondage or you're just holding hands. There can always be something there that can upset you. And you need to have those parameters in place so that if that happens, you're prepared for it. Now, one of the big things that people talk about when I do these workshops and ask questions at the end, I quite often have people come up and they go, listen, I know my safe words, I know what my aftercare parameters are, but I've never said them, so I'm nervous about the first time saying them. What happens if I'm in the moment, I can't say it? Practice it. Practice it. It's as simple as that. Play with your partner. Say, for example, I don't know, we'll go with yellow and red, super simple ones, okay? You want to explore kink a little bit more, you're anxious about saying yellow for the first time because you've never been in a situation where you've had to say it. You don't know whether you're going to get there and freeze because, of course, fight, flight, freeze, fall. There's the different potential outcomes in those situations if stuff's too much for you. And so people are always anxious, what do I do? Well, practice it. Sit down with your partner, with your playmate and say, okay, today the goal is to work our way up very slowly. We're not going to go to a full safe word. We're just going to work up very slowly, incrementally, to the point where it's going to be a yellow. And you're going to get used to just saying that word. And then play is going to go back to being soft and incrementally go back up again. And it's an easy way of getting that into your vocabulary and making it something that you feel comfortable saying. You feel comfortable being in that position. And then when you're actually in that position at some point in your future, which you may be, you may not be, but who knows? Sex is unpredictable. If at some point in your future you're in that position and you need to say that word, it will come far more naturally to you because it's a word that you've rehearsed. And there's no shame in that. There's another big part of it. A lot of people feel like there's a shame to bring the end to play because all of a sudden they're like, oh no, I've ruined it. You haven't. But get used to getting rid of that guilt and get used to having that conversation where you can go, okay, cool, said the word, all good, check in, reset. Nice and simple. Okay, so building up the vocabulary. I've done all of this. I do apologize. I'm looking through these notes because I didn't remember all of them beforehand. So a good blueprint for this conversation is discussing, first and foremost, things that you are into, things that you're not into, any hard and soft limits, any particular safe words that are personal to you, because some people have words that they've had for God knows how long. If not, red and yellow is always an easy one. Any safe signals, and what your aftercare parameters are. Now, to make this slightly more difficult, what I usually like to say is, obviously, it's hard to have a conversation with your partner. It should be easy to have a conversation with somebody you've never spoken to before. So usually at this point, I like to say to people, grab a stranger, okay? I see you're sat next to people that you know. I notice who came in with who, okay? Obviously, if you're super uncomfortable, grab a friend. But if you're comfortable, grab a stranger or form a little cluster of people. It doesn't matter, 2 or 3. And all I want you to do, you don't have to give them your real name, but just say to them, hi, I'm into, list a couple of things you're comfortable with. I'm not into, there's a couple of things that maybe you're on your soft limit list. What your safe words are and what your aftercare parameters are. And just mention it to them, have that conversation. Because again, there's what? 30 people in here? You're never going to see these people again, right? Who gives a shit what they know what you're into? Who cares? Like, who gives a fuck if you like to get pegged? Who cares? Like, who cares? Have a chat to them, pick a stranger, have that conversation with them, and if it's not that difficult, then amazing. All right, guys. So, I've had a little walk around, had a little chat to everybody. So it's been lovely to have a little chat to everybody and see that there are groups of people here who are literally chatting to strangers about stuff that I'm sure a lot of you guys probably wouldn't have spoken about outside of your bedroom. So it's really nice to see that there's some... Also, a couple of people here have definitely spoken about this stuff outside of the bedroom. I'm looking at you guys. No, but it's lovely to see the amount of people that are so comfortable to talk about this stuff that perhaps they wouldn't have been comfortable talking about earlier on. It's always nice in this community and in the industry that I'm a part of that you can have so many progressive, like-minded, friendly people who care about things like consent, who care about things like respecting one another, and you notice it so kind of vividly in communities like this, in the way in which people interact with one another, but also the way in which people communicate. I mean, how many other communities or industries can you get a room full of strangers to talk about who likes anal? Like, name one. Legally. Name one. I'm not going to ask any questions. But the fact is, it's incredibly rare to have a group of people who are so willing to talk so comfortably about such notoriously uncomfortable subjects. So feel proud of yourselves for that. That's a pretty big thing. Right? Yeah, give yourselves a round of applause. Now, if you can have these conversations with a stranger in the basement level of some pretty cool venue in the middle of London, you can certainly have this conversation with your play partners, with your partners, with maybe not your family, depending where you're from. I'm from Cornwall, I can make the joke. But no, have these conversations with the people in your life. Have these conversations with the people you're playing with. It shouldn't be a difficult conversation. Okay, at the end of the day, it's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's much better to have an uncomfortable conversation now than a really uncomfortable situation later on. Okay, and at the end of the day, if a person is judging you for the things you're saying, but not the right person to be with, that's the fact. Okay, give them space, give them time. They'll develop and they'll get there eventually. At the end of the day, we are into the things that we're into. They're a massive part of our identity and how we kind of interact with ourselves and others. A massive part of how we identify and interact with the world around us. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that stuff. We should be able to explore that stuff safely and consensually. And a massive part of that is being able to have these conversations. It doesn't matter if you're a long-term relationship. It doesn't matter if you've been together 5 months or 5 years. Stuff can change in that time. There might be stuff that you learn that you're into or stuff you realize you're not into. These conversations are important to have not just at the start of the relationship, but throughout. Check in. Check in whenever something changes, because it might be that you start dating 8 years ago. You'll do 2 different people 8 years later. The things that you're into, the things that you're not into, that can completely change in that time. So have these conversations frequently. Check in with your playmates. Check in with your partners. Okay? I've done these conversations, admittedly, because of my job, more times than I probably care to imagine. It doesn't get easier necessarily, but you can get used to it, and you can get used to getting comfortable in that uncomfortability. And that's the first step to having open discourse and save for better sex. Anyway, I'm sorry this has been such a short talk. Usually it involves chatting to more groups of people, but it's 20 parts, and that is basically the end of the talk. I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if anyone wants to have a look at any of my other stuff, I'm going to leave a little pile of my cards up here with my socials on. Feel free to give me a message. Feel free to give me a follow. And if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to put your hand up and come and grab me. Enjoy.